Welcome into the Ravens Rundown by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. June 1st is here. That means it is time for cut and trade candidates that the Ravens could potentially move on from after the June 1st date. We'll get to that and more coming up in just a matter of moments. Before we do, want to get this video out to the masses. So here's what I need from you guys. I need you to share today's show. And here's what I'm willing to do in return. If you share today's show, tag me on Twitter at Tyler Jones Live. I'm going to retweet you. And if you follow me, then I'll follow you back for the first 10 people that do so on today's show. So if you pat our back, I'll pat your back. A little exchange both ways. Click the share button. Select the Twitter icon. Click post to Twitter. Tag me for a retweet and follow me. And I'll follow you back for the first 10 that do so. And we'll get started with today's show. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over 4 very notable names that could be cut or could be traded. Now, I'll preface this by saying some of this would surprise me if it did happen. But nonetheless, as we have looked at this roster and where the Ravens are at, none of these 4 names, it's not impossible for the Ravens to potentially move on from. Let's start with maybe the most obvious one, Malik Harrison at the linebacker position for the Baltimore Ravens. And to be quite frank with you, Malik Harrison kind of has left a lot to be desired so far in the early part of his NFL career. And we've seen what the Ravens have done with the moves they've made at the linebacker position. Is there a place for Malik Harrison? Are they better off using that roster spot somewhere else? Bleacher Report had this to say in regards to Malik Harrison in the Ravens potentially moving on from him. The Ravens drafted Trenton Simpson and linebackers Christian Welch and Delshon Phillips, like Harrison, are core special teamers. If the team needs a roster spot and is comfortable with Simpson's readiness, Harrison could be the odd backer out. Harrison is about to enter the final year of a 4-year, $4.49 million deal. The Ravens can save $1.1 million against the cap if he's cut or traded after June 1st. And he's played in about 17 games in the last 3 seasons. So he hasn't necessarily been a guy that has been dependable for the Baltimore Ravens on that front. We got 3 more names to get to, but first, your chance to weigh in here on the show. Our pinned comment today: name a player the Ravens should move on from. Whether it's somebody we talk about today or somebody else that comes to mind, who do you think Baltimore should say sayonara to? Let us know in the comment section. Name a player you think the Ravens should ultimately let go. So Malik Harrison was our first name. Now let's go to our second name on this list. That is where we find Patrick Mekari at the offensive line spot of a guy that the Ravens could potentially be saying goodbye to. Pro Football Network brought up this idea, and this is what they had to say. The Baltimore Ravens are in a decent spot with their cap, and there is never, ever enough offensive line depth on teams. However, if the Ravens want to save $4 million against the cap in 2023, they could do so by releasing Patrick Makari. His experience at every position on the offensive line makes him valuable, but the Ravens have a surprising amount of depth on the offensive line heading into the next campaign. We got more that we'll tell you about Patrick Makari in just a second and the effect that it could have moving on from him. But first, today's show presented by BetUS, the exclusive sportsbook partner of Chat Sports. If you go to chatsports.com/bet, enter the promo code CHAT125, you can get a 125% deposit bonus. Put $100 down, get $125 to spend for free, and you can bet on tonight's NBA action. Game 1 of the NBA Finals between the Denver Nuggets and the Miami Heat. The Nuggets coming into tonight's game as a 9-point favorite. The over-under at 219.5. You can get your bets in whether you're feeling the Nuggets or the Heat. Maybe you want to bet on the Stanley Cup Finals that start this weekend, or maybe you're looking at some other sports like the MLB with the Orioles or some other teams out there. You can get your bets in now, whatever you're feeling. Chatsports.com/bet, promo code CHAT125 to get your bets in today. That's chatsports.com/bet, promo code CHAT125. So with Patrick Makari of the Ravens potentially moving on from him, from what I was reading, there would already be some teams immediately that would have some interest. In particular, the Denver Broncos were one that was mentioned as a possibility of having some interest there in Makari. He's got 2 years remaining on a 3-year, $15.45 million deal. And if the Ravens do end up saying goodbye, they could save $4 million if he's cut or traded after June 1st. And this is a guy that has played a lot of games over the last few years, 54 games to be exact, with 29 starts for Baltimore there. Two more names to get to on this list, and this is one of our more surprising names, I think. But it has kind of picked up some steam over the last few weeks, and that is Gus Edwards. And talk has ramped up around the flock about the idea of potentially moving on from Gus Edwards because there's a thought out there that if Keaton Mitchell looks as good as what a lot of people are expecting, then somebody's got to go. And Gus might be the guy that could be on the way out, that could have the least fresh legs left at this point, because you looked at J.K. Dobbins. He looked much better in the second half last year. Gus never really picked up full steam. Justice Hill has looked decent so far through OTAs at this point. Gus might be the guy on the way out. Now, he did recently take a pay cut. He restructured his contract to be paid around $1 million this season. And the money that he lost, he can get back with incentives. The Ravens, if they were to move him, more than likely the best option would be a trade where they could save just over $1 million against the cap if they were to trade him. And that might be the way where it makes sense, where you say, hey, we like what we see from Keaton Mitchell. You're going to trade Gus and try to get something out of him while you can, and get that draft pick, whatever it may be, and give an opportunity to Keaton Mitchell. He did return off an ACL injury, and he just didn't look like the same running back that he did previously when he came back last year. So Gus Edwards, it would be a surprise considering that he did take that pay cut, but I wouldn't rule it out as a possibility potentially. The last name on this list, also in that backfield with Gus Edwards, is Patrick Ricard. Now, if you look at the offense that Todd Monken runs, of what he did at Georgia and what he's done previously in the NFL, there's not as much of an emphasis on the fullback position as what we've seen with Greg Roman's system, of what Greg Roman's done. And so with what Todd Monken is looking to do, it might not make sense to keep a roster spot, even as good as Patrick Ricard is, one of the best fullbacks in the NFL. It's not something that is a typical strength of what Monken likes to do offensively, of emphasis on the fullbacks. So now might be a time to move on from Ricard to go to a team that uses the fullback position, that uses that more than what we've seen from Todd Monken. Now Monken might be able to adjust the personnel and find a way to use Ricard anyway, but based on what he's done in the past, the fullback position doesn't appear to be necessarily something that Monken has necessarily valued so much. With that said, Ricard has 2 years remaining on a 3-year, $11.25 million deal. The Ravens can save close to $3 million against the cap if they cut or trade him after post-June 1. And you're talking about a guy that's right in the prime of his career right now. 4 straight Pro Bowls for Patrick Ricard dating back to 2019 that he's been a part of. So if you're going to trade any fullback, this would be the guy that you could potentially get something for. So we'll see where that goes. If you had to take one to keep, whether it's Gus or Patrick Ricard, who would you rather stick around in Baltimore? Let us know in the comments section. Type Gus for Gus Edwards. Type Pat for Patrick Ricard. Which guy would you rather have stay with the Baltimore Ravens here in 2023? Let us know in the comments section. To recap our potential cut candidates that I'll say this, kind of jump off the page a little bit. And remember, as we've prefaced this from the very beginning, we're not predicting that all 4 of these guys are going to be gone. But these are the guys that the Ravens are potentially evaluating to see if they're worth hanging around or not. They include Malik Harrison, Patrick Mekari, Gus Edwards, and also Patrick Ricard on that list. Name a player the Ravens will move on from. We asked you earlier who they should move on from. Who will they move on from when they cut down this roster from 90 down to 53 when it's all said and done? Let us know in the comments section. Hit me up on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Tyler Jones Live. You can find me there. I'll see you next time right here on Ravens Rundown.